Next question says, I know that you serve on not nonprofit boards, and how can I get on a board? Why, how might that help your career? So the first part of my answer is, I have found so much fulfillment in working on nonprofit boards, not just like personal feel-good kind of fulfillment, but real job satisfaction and skills development by working on a nonprofit board. And now that I'm an entrepreneur, I see this as a hugely untapped way to build very strong networks with very important decision makers, because the people that sit on these nonprofit boards are often very influential leaders in your local communities. So, and even national, depending on what type of board you're wanting to go on. So I highly recommend that people consider this as not just something that, I'm passionate about this topic, but as a legitimate skills development and network development activity that you may want to proactively pursue on your way to larger leadership roles. So there's 3 ways. I'm on 3 nonprofit boards, and I got into each one of them a different way. So I'm going to kind of describe these 3 ways that I think make it easy to get in. And then honestly, once you're in one, you are now in the network of nonprofits, and you can easily get into other ones if you really wanted to. So the first way is actually to have your company place you on a board. So that's how I got on my first nonprofit, and Alcoa put me in this nonprofit. So, large companies have a philanthropic arm. They are typically donating small or even large sums of money in the communities that they serve, just to be a good steward of business. And oftentimes they want to put leaders from the company on the board because they know it's a good leadership development opportunity for their people. And it gets them either, even more entrenched in the local community, and it looks good for them. So if you are seriously, interested in a nonprofit board, the first place I would look is to see if where you are currently employed is donating to any boards and is willing to just make an introduction and see if there's a place to go. And I said, that's how I got on the Boys and Girls Clubs locally here in Tennessee, where I live. It's a really big board. It's like one of the top 3 most influential boards in our county. And so it's been a huge benefit for me to sit on that board, and Alcoa just put me in it. And then once I got in, I realized, okay, this is how I fit in their skills matrix. And then I started figuring out how to do it. So the second way is if you can start by volunteering with a certain nonprofit. So if there's a topic that you're personally really passionate about, you can do some volunteer work for them. And then once they see you, maybe after 6 months of really consistently sharing their mission through your volunteer work, then you can just raise your hand and say, hey, I'm really interested in taking my service to the next level. And so that's when you start having those conversations about getting, further into their own leadership. Some of them have, mid-level advisory boards that might be smaller and local or on a specific topic. And then they have what are called the corporate boards, which are responsible for really managing and advising the CEO. They're much more like a board of directors at a corporation. So it may be a year that you work your way through volunteering for 6 months on an advisory board for 6 months, and then that next thing you're on their corporate board. That's a very reasonable way to do that. And that's how I got on the board of the Knoxville Entrepreneur Center, which is another hugely influential board, and really, particularly now that I'm an entrepreneur myself, really great to be on. I just knocked on their door. So actually it was funny. I came out of MIT thinking I knew everything I was an expert in entrepreneurship because I had studied it. And I knocked on their door and was like, can I mentor? And they were like, sure. And I was thinking I was going to teach them something. And then it turns out that they already knew it. turns out people who actually have been entrepreneurs already knew all that stuff. But there were still some things I could help with. And then I mentored for about 6 months. And then they asked me to join the board. I said I can't because I'm moving to France. But the second I came back to the US, they're like, hey, are you ready? Can you join our board? And I joined the board. So, and then the third way is through networking. And so I'm also on a board of a local nonprofit that is a children's science center. And it was just somebody that I knew who was the executive director at the time. Actually, I didn't know her. I met her through the Entrepreneur Center. And then she was like, hey, are you interested in joining our board? So you potentially network with people either already in your network or as you start doing service, but kind of once you get known as being somebody that serves in that way, then people will be banging on your doors constantly. I mean, I'm constantly getting asked to join boards. So those are the 3 ways: get your company to put you in, volunteer your way in, or network your way in. And then once you do that, you can go from there. And as I said, they've been hugely fulfilling for me, both personally in the type of service, but also really helping me expand my network to some very influential people in my community. So highly recommend it.